Hello everybody and welcome to episode 92 of The Media Beat. And as I always say, every episode is special, but this one has a specialness to it because we have a guest, but not only a guest. It's the first time we've had a repeat guest coming on the show. And actually, Emily was our first guest that we had. And I don't know if anyone can remember when that was. I've done my research and I've looked up in my archive. And anyone who wants to go and look at that episode to see how well we've aged can go back to episode 12 from September.
Wow. 80th anniversary of having a guest on. That's awesome.
Yeah, the first time we must have Emily on. That's one of the phrases of the show. September 2022. So that is insane. So that's like 3.5 years ago, right? And so getting on for 4 years ago, which is absolutely crackers. So, Emily, you'll notice a massive improvement in our professionalism and the fact that we're on video now. So we take much more care of our appearance. But for those of you who don't know Emily, she is a massive friend of the show, independent kids media consultant. She's worked at Disney, so former Disney executive, based in Dublin, author of the very widely read Netflix Kids Content Performance Report, now in its 5th edition, and the Kids StreamerSphere newsletter. So you might gather from that her specialism is kids TV, has opinions on other things as well, which we can't wait to hear. She's well known as the only analyst doing this systematically, that is Netflix engagement data, analysing Netflix engagement data. So in the notes it says she has a distinctive perch, and I'm not sure whether that was written by Claire deliberately. Distinctive perch, distinctive pitch. Anyway, she's a very distinctive and unique person. Emily Horgan, fantastic to meet you. Claire, I think, is it you who's going to start off with the questions?
I'm going to start off. I have to correct you, Oliver.
As usual.
We have had a guest come back because Alex Gunnock came back twice.
Of course he did. Yeah. Yes. Yes, that's right. Oh dear, how embarrassing.
It is very, very special to have Emily, and we're delighted. And actually, when you first came, we were, baby podcasters, but you were sort of a baby analyst as well. You had just started looking at the Netflix data, and now as Oliver says, you're in your 5th iteration of that incredible piece of work that is the Netflix Performance Report. So perhaps you can explain a little bit what that is, and then we can dig into the headlines of the latest one.
Yeah, definitely. Thanks so much for having me back, you guys, and congrats on your success. I regularly listen to you at the weekend, usually when I'm cleaning my bathrooms, but,
Anything that works, it doesn't matter.
It's like the perfect thing to distract me from the grossness. 2022, I can't believe it. And congratulations on 92 episodes. It's like the podcast is officially old. But yeah, back in 2022, listen, my journey with this analysis started when I became an independent consultant, when I was made redundant by Disney, like nearly everybody has been who was there. And I was out in the world, brand new, and I couldn't figure out how people were getting on without research teams. I was like, how do you all know what's doing well, what's good, what's bad? And that really freaked me out. It turned out that I also coincided with what I would consider the dawn of streaming ratings. First of all, we had the top 10 trending lists per country that were being logged by Flix Patrol. Then Nielsen came out with their top 10 and then top 30. Then Netflix started coming out with their top 10s. And then they started dropping the engagement reports in 2023. So I kind of started tracking all of these publicly available data sources as they were spitting up and keeping an eye out for the dorsal fins of kids content performance. And then when the engagement reports dropped in 2023, these are the big massive dumps that Netflix does every 6 months. You're talking 15,000 plus lines per season of content that's on the service. The first one dropped and I, dove in as I was currently, as part of what I was doing on an ongoing basis. And then the second one dropped and I was like, oh, someone should really do something with that. It's a really great opportunity. And so, yeah, I got a little bit of funding from local enterprise office in Ireland to invest a bit in the product. we've built a proprietary kids database, because I always find when I'm looking at kids analysis from the broader research folks, that whenever I'm looking at their kids analysis, I'm always correcting their homework. I'm like, you forgot that, you forgot that, you forgot that. I know they try their best, but when you're really living and breathing kids content, like the devil's in the detail. So yeah, we set up the database. We launched the pilot report that looked at 2023, and then we launched with clients at the end of 2024. We have an awesome suite of clients who have stuck with us since then, and some extra people have come on across major streamers, major toy companies, licensing people, producers sometimes flip in and flip out depending on whether they have a show on Netflix. But yeah, the report's now in its 5th edition. We've made improvements. It's given us buy-in to go deep on various topics like Netflix and YouTube, Netflix and Roblox. In the latest report, we look at playlists on Netflix, which is a discovery method that they're using. So yeah, really, really happy. I have a little team working for me. A shout out to Paloma and Emma and Hannah. And yeah, we're really proud of the output, I have to say. So thank you for having me on. I can talk about this all day.
Excellent. Well, we won't keep you all day, but we definitely want to hear. I mean, I'm very curious about what's in the latest report, what you found, but also perhaps what are the things that having done this now for 3 years, what are the things that are coming out of 2 years? What are the things the trends that you're starting to see emerging when you look at that data? Or are there any trends, or is it just completely changing every 6 months?
It's the perfect type of trends, honestly, Claire. I say that as a data nerd, but it's like, yes, we're having bigger trends validated. I always find they're revalidated with a yes and, right? There's always, one of the big ones for me when we started doing the report was like, oh my gosh, like Netflix preschool is very dominated by YouTube IP. And listen, we know, well, I knew Cocomelon was big on Netflix. I had been, tweeting about it and LinkedIning about it for probably 18 months or 2 years. But actually there was a big long tail of YouTube IP that was doing well. We've since seen that swirl a bit. Obviously, Cocomelon, the engagement with Cocomelon, Netflix has declined. I mean, it's declined from like the top of Everest to 75% down at Everest, which is still like massively higher than most people in the world. But we've seen we've seen that happen. We're seeing IP like Miss Rachel come in, right? Really make a dent in the top 10, and so there's always like a yes and to the big trends. The one thing we've definitely seen in 2025 is the top tier of Netflix kids content get a lot more competitive. They, at one stage when we started the report, we had what we termed elite performance series. It was a handful of series, 5 series, including Cocomelon, that we were just like, we need to exclude these from charts, because if they're in a chart, basically the takeaway is that everything else is smaller than these. Whereas if you cut them out, you're able to see a lot more of the messy middle, which is where a lot more of the learnings are. We retired the elite performance series designation in the latest round of the report because that top 10 is so competitive. We had 2 changes. So 2 changes to number 1, where Cocomelon had been there for 2023, most of 2024. In 2025, Gabby's Dollhouse took number 1 in half 1. Paw Patrol took number 1 in half 2. And Miss Rachel continues to climb. So there's lots of, it's a really competitive environment.
Can I ask you, Emily, about Miss Rachel? Yeah, can I ask you about that, Miss Rachel's rise? Like, is this now going to be, in your view, how should we interpret it? A one-off star comes along, or is this evidence that creator-led IP is now a more durable pipeline for streaming?
I think that there's a couple of different theses around creator or YouTube-led content. I mean, people will say because of the trajectory of Cocomelon that it burns brightly and then it declines. Actually this time around we saw Little Angel see an uptick, which is Little Angel, for those who don't have like 2-year-olds, is like a Cocomelon. It's very similar Cocomelon type format. Miss Rachel's entrance into Netflix is really very remarkable. And maybe the arguable values of her brand or whatever are a lot more durable or in line with what parental, what parental wants would be. She's very education led, and actually when we looked into Miss Rachel in detail, like, she's doing a ton of stuff on YouTube that if I saw that without the brand attached, I'd be like, whose strategy is this? This is loopers, right? Like, she only posts, anything between like 9 and 11 videos per year, right? Like, so she's not doing that. Like, as a YouTube strategist, I'd be like, weekly, you need to be going multiple times, like drive a cadence. Miss Rachel doesn't do that. She hasn't done it for many, many years. She only releases videos when she feels they're baked and they're teamed and they're produced. And she's managed to still cut through with that. So she is very special and unique. More recently, we have seen Mark Rober launch on Netflix. Mark Rober launched towards the end of last year. His launch was definitely strong. I would say definitely strong. We need to see what with the next round of data if he kind of has this exponential deliverable. But he's definitely, top tier. And funnily enough, Netflix just announced another more live action creator style partnership with Danny Go. I don't know if you guys keep fit with Danny Go. He's got banging tunes, but he's really cool. He's like Joe Wicks, right? It's like the American Joe Wicks, okay?
Yeah.
But he's also really specifically preschool, and he doesn't wander off into politics. So Netflix have announced a partnership with Danny Go. Danny Go is very in schools as well. So yeah, I think, I'm seeing trends coming through on creators, but and we can see the strength of their content. I don't necessarily have if a live action creator launches, this is precisely what's going to happen. We're still in the early stages of that kind of that transition, but a lot of the it's definitely working. Let's put it that way.
How does Netflix these days play in the preschool world? I mean, perhaps in the US first, and then looking more globally, or at least Western Europe. I mean, how do they compare with Nick? How do they compare with Disney? Who are the big players at the moment in preschool content?
Yeah, definitely Disney, definitely Netflix. If we're talking US, definitely PBS. So one of the things we look at in the most recent report, obviously with all the merger activity that's been going on, and literally the ground shifted underneath our feet while we were in the middle of writing the report, where we were writing this whole thing about what will Netflix do when they buy Warner, and then it was like,
this was happening as we were recording the episode. I remember it well.
Yeah, no, I know. So yeah, that was exactly our experience too. But ultimately, I think the way the merger at least looks to be going, and I don't know, I don't want to say it's definitely going that way, because I thought the Netflix Warner thing was a cert when it happened, but I think that leaves the kids landscape in a better position, honestly, because Netflix have not historically, particularly when it comes to preschool content, been very invested in building for themselves. Okay. There's been some good Netflix original global shows. Gabby's Dollhouse, backed by DreamWorks, is standout and is the, people all talk about K-pop Demon Hunters, but Gabby is the OG of streaming franchise. Gabby walks out K-pop Demon Hunters could dance. But and the Creature Cases from Sony is also kind of like a low, it's in the top 10, but it's one that people won't like. It's not a Peppa Pig standard. It's not a Gabby's Dollhouse standard yet, but it's still very strong and kind of a low key deliverer. But those are both built by other studios, essentially, and invested in by other studios. Netflix went through a whole phase of investing in preschool content. They poached a load of Disney creators like Chris Nee to output content for them. But then they kind of dropped the ball and they didn't want to do the franchise thing. And they never really have picked up the ball on that since. K-pop Demon Hunters aside, that's kind of a different case. But so if they had bought Warner, my worry was that, with somebody who's kind of disinterested in kids content, buying a company who had basically jettisoned kids content from a US domestic point of view. HBO Max had dropped Sesame Street, had dropped all the Cartoon Network stuff, which is still really valuable content. A lot of that Cartoon Network stuff really stands up. And if they had bought Warner, it would have been and then they would have been just them versus Disney. Paramount wouldn't really have had a hope in the plan, or in the landscape. So actually, with Disney obviously remaining very key, Paramount buying Warner, and Paramount plus Warner is like kind of a kids offering that you can't really ignore. It'd be corporate vandalism to not monetize or commercialize around that. Plus Paramount have put in a team that would suggest that they want to get quite serious about kids content. And then with those two doing their thing, Netflix can't afford to just rest, right? It has to stay a bit more active. Netflix is definitely the place, though, where they're happy for other people to do the building, and then they'll give the window and they'll give the exposure, and they'll give, I think definitely with these YouTube style properties, the credibility and safety maybe. They deliver that for sure. So any premium streaming service delivers that over YouTube. So that's kind of where I see the preschool landscape at the moment anyway.
Can I pick up on the K-pop, the Demon Hunters, which is I find fascinating. So clearly,
wow!
I got my jerky cat. I got a jerky cat. He's a knockoff from China, but he's really difficult. I wasn't spending 90 quid on Netflix.shop. I couldn't afford that.
I want one of those. I want one of those for Podmojis. Yeah. So this goes beyond kids, and it takes us into music fandom, and YouTube. Do you think then the crossover is becoming those channels is becoming more important than, say, the category purity that we've seen historically?
I feel like I'm not sure about that, Maureen. Like category purity. I mean, like K-pop Demon Hunters to me was like High School Musical this decade, right? Like it's like the Disney always got the like whole music and TV visuals and franchisability of things. And so but the funny thing about K-pop is it was absolutely not intended, right? Like everything suggests that they did not see this coming. And they didn't even see it coming when it was coming for a number of weeks. It caught them by surprise. There's, different questions around, like, would it be as big if it went to cinema? Like, it would be bigger if it went to cinemas, which I actually disagree with. I don't think parents would have been taking kids to see a movie called K-pop Demon Hunters. And I also think, like, that accessibility of it over the summer for kids to watch and rewatch and like go back and learn the dances with their friends. And I literally had a group of girls out on the green across from my house doing dances on the green, right? That kind of community around it and kids' availability in that moment, being on summer holidays, I think was all part of why it caught fire. It probably would have caught fire because it's such a great movie. But the way it caught fire in a moment, I think, is driven by the fact that it was on streaming. And Netflix have done really well around activating around it since. I'm absolutely happy to say that. Like, franchise is not their wheelhouse, and they have made lots of great decisions around getting it into movies in August, then getting it into movies again in around October. They signed this kind of landmark Mattel and Hasbro joint deal that like they never play together, right? So that's really impressive. And, I know they're not getting the new movie until 2029, but if they need to take the time with it, they should. They shouldn't rush it. Like, the worst thing they could do is push it early and screw it up. So, K-pop is just a really interesting case for them. And I also feel like it's little things like the YouTube team. I think in a way, because nobody was really looking at it, or like there maybe wasn't the pressure on it to be a franchise, like the YouTube team just YouTubed it. They were like, let's lash up all these lyric music videos launch weekend. Like, let's just get them up there. Nobody, like, not that nobody cares about this movie, but like, people are, whatever. We can do our thing. We've just been told we can YouTube this movie. Like, we'll just YouTube it. But like, that also helped to catch on and help the repeatability and people get engaged. And the music is phenomenal, obviously.
And actually, High School Musical wasn't in cinema either.
No, exactly.
No,
and
yeah.
And back then, right, it was linear. You didn't have it on demand, but like we played that thing to death.
Oh yes, I remember that.
Yeah. And Emily, is Netflix taking a similar approach with kids as it's doing with the wider set of genres? Like, original IP is deprioritized over licensed.
No, they definitely want their prestige TV in the entertainment space. They want their Stranger Things, they want their Squid Games, they want The Queen, right? Like, they want that type of programming. That is what they are in the business for. And that's what I think, keeps Ted Sarandos very happy. Like, that's the type of content that he has always, sitting in the video shop, right? Like, was like, I'd love to be in charge of this. I don't think Ted was perusing the kids section very much. I do feel like kids is like, a need to have for Netflix because of retention and the opportunity to tap into the value kids can deliver is maybe less in focus. And definitely like, and I'd be interested to know your opinions, right? Because prestige TV can do great metrics over 28 days, and that's what Netflix is. It's really their benchmark. Kids content, particularly preschool, does not do business necessarily in 28 days. Preschoolers binge, but they don't binge on anybody else's schedule. They binge when they suddenly find something and they just watch it forever. You know, my little boy had a Paw Patrol era, he had a Bing era, he had an Octonauts era. He's currently in his Minecraft era, but you know, it's different. And I think so kids kind of gets a little bit elbowed out because it doesn't work on the metrics that prestige TV does. I would argue, and I'd love to hear your views on this, that probably lots of other genres get stuck because of that 28 day focus. I would say things like sitcoms take longer to build, and like reality TV might take longer to build. It's not always hot in the moment. It's more like those comfort TV genres and stuff.
But I think for me, it's very obvious that Netflix has their marketing spend, which is the prestige TV. But the stuff that keeps churn low is the library content. I mean, you know, for younger adults, it's Gilmore Girls, it was Friends, it's The Office, it's this sort of shows that they will watch that you can't really put on marketing material because it's not sexy, but people will watch over and over and over again. And we know that people watch these shows on repeat. Gilmore Girls, there's a whole thing that, you know, you have to watch it in September. There's like annual rewatches. And I'm curious about this. Well,
every September, our episodes are always
every September. Yeah, Gilmore Girls. It's one of my daughters who's much younger and came much after. Anyway, another story. The point is, the library content is the real. You know, it's like a TV channel that is pushing. You know, ITV was pushing Got Talent, but making money off the bill. You know what I mean? It's like that. That's how it works. I'm wondering how that is for kids content, how more library content is performing. So you mentioned in your report, you mentioned SpongeBob, obviously.
Yeah.
You mentioned also Sesame Street, which I was surprised to see wasn't doing that well on the platform, which, what else is working in terms of kids library?
Yeah. And that's definitely the thing with kids is like kids, I kind of feel like content produced in the last 25 years, not all content produced, but there was certain series and IPs and brands that were produced in the last 25 years are of a standard that they stand the test of time. And I think this will probably happen more and more with adult TV as well. Like the Gilmore Girls, probably, is it 20 years old?
At least.
You know, right?
Least, yeah.
So, you know, it's a real, like, so SpongeBob is a real pillar in kids viewing. Paw Patrol, Peppa are real pillars in kids viewing. You know, we still see Barbie does well, My Little Pony. I mean, the newer series there, Pokemon. So these take up space and will continue to take up space. And particularly now as like parents are going to hand down, you know, SpongeBob to their kids. And also they have also the ancillary value. Something like SpongeBob, I have to believe, is that's also becoming the comfort TV of Zen TV, right? Like it's not just kids that are watching it. So the value from a broader audience perspective to a 4-quadrant streamer is bigger. So yeah, and that's the thing. It's like, you know, I feel like we used to have TV channels for a decade or got to 2 decades used to work in pipelines, and you know, we'll have a new season of that, we'll have a new season of that, we'll have this new series, and we'll have this new series, and we'll have a new season of that, this new series, and then that new series last year we'll have the new season of that, right? And I think, I don't know, like novelty, it takes investment for novelty to cut through, particularly with kids. So if you're going to go for something new, you really need to back it. And I will always say DreamWorks backed the hell out of Gabby's Dollhouse when they launched it, and they continue to do that, right? Like they continue. Gabby's Dollhouse had the movie last year, right? Like they're continuing to like pull out every trick in the book to keep Gabby top of mind and relevant. And I kind of feel like Gabby's probably just she's at that stage where she's probably graduated into not necessarily needing the kitchen sink throne. But you know, good on them for really backing it. And so this kind of idea that, you know, new commissions and new series are going to be launched, you know, 10 to the dozen on an annual basis, is old school. It's not great for the industry, obviously, because, you know, newness is what drives production. But you need to be realistic about what the commercial value of something is. And I also think, that they've definitely got to a stage where that kind of disposability of content, like, you're spending 3 million on this series and you're spending 0 on marketing it. Like, in what area, in what mind does that make sense? So, but yeah, that repeatability, the comfort TV is definitely there. And I think the spoils go to those types of shows like SpongeBob. Like, SpongeBob is still producing new seasons. SpongeBob is producing Netflix original movies. SpongeBob is still, like, again, firing on cylinders. Ditto Paw Patrol, who's moved to a more theatrical model and done the spin-off of Rubble and Co. and all that kind of stuff. So, finding novel ways to keep old things fresh is easier than launching novelty in of itself, maybe.
Do you think the future franchise may go from farming effectively on YouTube?
Yeah.
But Claire and I are both so eager to ask you those
We
questions.
really for hours. Before you go, Maureen, I want to point out that our fearless producer has looked up how old Gilmore Girls was. Oliver, tell us all.
Oh, thank you. Great to have a part. 26 years old, starting in 2000, pre 9/11. What a difference.
Okay, so now we feel
Gilmore Girls are watching SpongeBob back to back.
I love Gilmore Girls anyway, incidentally. I don't know why. Not
Go
really
on,
my
Maureen.
audience.
Okay, so I was saying in terms of the sort of future franchise, just building on that discussion and thinking about YouTube. Do you think that we should be viewing YouTube as a sort of a farming interesting either creators or shows themselves? You then take it on to Netflix, and you scale it, you monetize it through, as we've been discussing, music, toys, and maybe even games and live experiences. I mean, we haven't touched on Roblox yet, and it would be really interesting to get your view on Roblox too. But one other thing is I've always thought about kids and in particular distribution. It's kind of now inseparable from safety, familiarity, and habit and trust. So that must be the sort of through line as well when we're thinking about the various strategies that Netflix is adopting.
Yeah, I mean, kids are neophobic, right? Like, getting kids to watch new things, particularly preschoolers, is a lift. And that's again why I say if producers are coming to the table with a new show, there needs to be backup behind it. YouTube as a farm, I would have agreed with 6 years ago. But these days, one of the things about YouTube is, since the COPA ruling in 2019, is that the revenue levels are not there on YouTube. Okay, so the revenue levels for kids IP have reduced by 50 to 70% since COPA has come in, which is a bummer. The thing about that, certain like CoComelon is still fine, don't worry, and like like Miss Rachel,
I was worried there.
Yeah, they're still making money, but like what that means to me is that like the next Miss Rachel will really struggle to find the moment on YouTube Kids to bet the farm, right? You know what I mean? To go, hey, I'm kind of making, like I'm making $5,000 a month on this. I can just about live on that, and if I can give all my time to this, then I can make that grow, and I can see that grow. So that's one of the fundamental issues with YouTube. Despite that, YouTube being such an overwhelmingly uptaken platform for kids means you really have to be on YouTube to be relevant, right? We look at the Netflix data for sure, but in many places of the report we say YouTube is the number one platform for kids. I can give you 27 different data points that show that on a global, local, market basis as to why it's so important. One of the things that's really important is any production or distribution deals you're doing with big streamers, public service broadcasters, local broadcasters, or whatever, need to allow for YouTube presence, just so everybody can win, right? Like this type of old-fashioned deal of like, you need to geolock, or I think we talked about this actually in 2022, like you need to geolock or whatever, right? Like isn't serving anyone, right? Like that's just like a legacy hangover that's not really delivering to a kid's audience. And it can be difficult in bigger organizations where they're dealing not with kids and like, this is my YouTube policy, and you're like, but kids is different. So it's YouTube definitely is a place where kids IP needs to grow and take up space, but that farm angle for it is really challenged because of the revenue. You used to be able to, you know, the big players have scaled on YouTube. I mean, did Miss Rachel need Netflix? She was really big, but it does give credibility. It does give validity when you're going into stakeholders like retailers or licensees. It does have credibility with parents. And actually, I think that's what we're seeing Netflix sort of cherry pick off YouTube. It's like, we get a few of these creators. I really hope they're paying them well, because that is bringing an audience in. You know, but we cherry pick a few of these. We're basically making alternative safe YouTube. Like, what's not to like from that, from a parent's perspective, with no ads, right? Or at the very least with vetted, you know, fully complied broadcast standard advertising. Because, you know, YouTube ads and you're not, you know, you don't get them as much on YouTube Kids, but against kids content in YouTube overall, like yeah, you get served horror movies, right? Like, you get served pregnancy tests, right? Like, you get like, these are just
so many pregnancy tests.
Oh my God! Like, it's just like, this is not like, why?
Although they've stopped for me, I don't know. I don't want to go in there. I'm wondering though, Emily, in that case, how do you know? Because 10 years, 15 years ago, if you wanted to launch a kids show, you would go and you would get a slot on a free-to-air broadcaster, right? And you potentially would give it for free to the free-to-air broadcaster, because that was
on your pay TV, and they'd pay for the show, and then you go and try and get it
exactly. Yeah. So you'd get your slot on a pay TV, then you'd get your slot on a free-to-air broadcaster, then you'd get your Mattel and Hasbro deals, and that's how you build a new preschool brand. Then there was YouTube, and that, you know, was flawed, but it was a way to build. And, you know, you've talked about some of the big brands like Cocomelon who have managed to really build off YouTube. What's next? How do you build a preschool brand from scratch these days?
Oh God, Claire, I don't know.
Tell us. We'll go and do it. And
it's tough out there.
Become rich.
You know what? I actually think this. Don't shoot me for this, but like, linear still has a place. If you're talking preschool specifically, linear still has a place. I kind of hold up Bluey as the last example of the old model that worked. But one of the reasons I believe it worked is because of its linear windows on Disney globally and on ABC in Australia. One of the issues with premium streaming is that it hasn't solved for discovery, right? Like, something's big in 28 days or it's flushed down the algorithm toilet. Like, you know, it's that ability to resurface content, or to like the way YouTube just knows what you want to watch and what you want to rewatch. You know what I mean? Like, it's not just like what's new, let's shove that down your throat. Like I have this music video that stalks me around YouTube like once a year, and I'm like, oh, I haven't listened to that. Let's listen to that. So premium streaming doesn't do that. And they, let's be honest, they don't have the data, right? Like, they don't have the user data. YouTube is farming off Google's entire ecosystem, so it knows exactly like what your emails are. They don't have the data, and then they really seem to resist doing anything that's editorially led. So back in linear channels, yes, we would see audience data, not in any depth, but we would go, let's lead into the new show. Like, on Disney, it's like, we're launching a new show, lead in Hannah Montana. Right, Grant, you've got yourself an audience, right? Like, at least sampling the show. You know, we had, you know, a toolbox, I would say, around linear. There doesn't seem to be any sort of programming or discovery toolbox in premium streaming. And I think that's one of the major issues when it comes to launching a new show on the premium streaming. It's like, if it's not big in the first week, it really is at risk of just going under the water, going under the kind of the fold, I guess, of the service. And that is where linear broadcasters actually, particularly with preschool, still have relevance. You know, at least you have a quantified slot, where you are getting some audience in a routine driven way on a daily or weekly basis. I'd say Bluey launched on ABC Australia, then they did the deal with Disney, was on Disney channels and Disney Plus. You know, again, it's a third party to Disney, it's a third party acquisition. Again, in my view, I think because it wasn't a Disney proprietary brand, it could just do, like, the programmers were just programming it where it worked, as opposed to being like, we need to shoehorn Bluey into everything or whatever, right? Like, they were able to just use it in the way for the platform. It was propped up by the linear windows on Disney Junior and Disney Channel, where people were discovering it and then could go to Disney Plus and pick it up. So So in answer, how do you launch a preschool brand today? Like you kind of need it all. You need it all. You need YouTube. You need ideally a global streaming service, and ideally a little bit of linear, maybe in linear or free to air or public or PSB in core markets. And that's how you would go with a premium brand. On YouTube, if you're starting from scratch, you need to have probably toy baked in from the start. You need to have other revenue streams baked in from the start. Like you can't just suck it and see on YouTube, because you're never going to get to a critical mass of of revenue to be able to justify it. You need to be, it needs to be, we're going to do this because we know we can monetize it that way as well as this way. And usually that way involves toy or some other type of product that can drive.
And just going back to the point about the new market now. So the new market is a highly consolidated Warner Brothers and Paramount, with some fantastic franchises and IP, Disney and Netflix. But the backdrop here now is a more legal, strict environment about safety and trust.
Yes.
And that's against the backdrop of the Meta and Google rulings in Los Angeles and in Mexico and Brazil and the like. I know that Netflix isn't Instagram or YouTube, but when we see the rulings around addiction, when we see the rulings around this isn't a safe environment for the youth of today, what do you think this is going to be a matter of? Well, actually we'll be protected because the premium kids platform is safe, is reliable, or do you think it's going to be a catalyst for changing the product design or the algorithms and the recommendations? What are you hearing and what are you seeing about how this new landscape will look given the legal rulings recently?
Yeah, listen, it's a very the traditional entertainment landscape is very difficult right now, and kids is always at the pointy end of whatever change is coming. The news dropped recently of like the Kids Screen conference not going ahead anymore, and like World Screen like ceasing to publish. So basically there's very little free kids media news that's available online right now.
Kids is interesting, isn't it? Because that was the big, for those who don't know, that was the big annual market where you would go see everything that was new. That if you had a new show, that's where you would go and try to sell it or promote it. Yeah, and that's cancelled rather abruptly.
It is, yeah. Well, don't sure it was not abrupt, but yeah, it's been declining for years. But we're in this moment, but it's all part of the same symptom, right? Like there's fewer buyers, there's fewer commissioning on kids. We have been leaning into YouTube as a core platform for a decade. I think other demos and general entertainment, other genres are starting to lean into YouTube now. Some of me is questioning why, because with kids, the kids went there, and I suppose the kids of yesterday they're not suddenly going to start turning on the TV in a different way. They're going to turn on YouTube looking for their content. But it's really difficult because YouTube doesn't buy into any of the risk, right? Like rev share, no risk. On kids and on the safety thing, Maureen, I think like we at one stage on the traditional side, we're waiting. We know what's happening, and we know that budgets are down and commissioning is down. This YouTube shop, this digital shoe waiting to drop, where is there going to be an age ban? Is there going to be an age restriction? What are going to be the outcomes of some of these cases, particularly the ones in the US, about the health of how healthy is the algorithm? And no one's surprised by this. Like I am literally I'm a twice recovering TikTok addict, right? Like I know how addictive the algorithm is. Currently relapsed, don't judge me. But it's not right for kids. And so one of the things I would say to clients, and it's a hard one to sell in, because I'd say if you're in preschool, you shouldn't be using a shorts format, right? Like you shouldn't be using it. And yes, I'm advising you to leave that engagement and the views on the table, but it's not right, so we're kind of waiting for that other shoe to drop to see where we end up in terms of platforms. And it is really difficult. I mean, I have to say we touched on Roblox a bit. Like one of the things I respect Roblox for is that they 100% accept that kids are on the platform, right? And that is not doing them any favors, right? Like that is not something that is making their jobs easier. It's making their jobs painful, difficult. they try to, I believe they've stuff in place to try to do the right thing, about all of the deep and dark things that can happen when, kids are on a platform. They might be trying to do the right thing on that, but it will never be good enough. But at least they're leaning into that pain rather than pretending that kids aren't there, because they're owning up and they're taking responsibility for it. And they're not shying away from it, even though it's very, very difficult. So other platforms, obviously YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, like to pretend that they're 13 plus when we all know they aren't, and they know they aren't. And by doing that, they abdicate the responsibility. That is the other thing about the age restrictions, is like Australia can bring in age restrictions, and then these platforms say, okay, well, we're age restricted, but like kids still find a way, right? Like, and then the platform still has no responsibility because we're age restricted. We did what you said. It's a really difficult one. It's a really difficult one.
Yes, because technically they are already age restricted to 13, right? And we all know, certainly on YouTube,
you don't need an account to log into YouTube, so it's accessible to all who have a screen and an internet connection.
What about AI? Do you see that influencing kids' content? All of these AI generated little cartoons that you see. Somebody sent me one where a poor little Gorgonzola woman was being kicked out by a burrata man. Anyway, this doesn't matter. That was crazy. I will send it to you, Emily, because it's on TikTok and you will love it.
Funny friends. She's got some funny friends sending her these things.
I call them my children, but only in private. Anyway, where you do see enormous amounts of AI generated animation now. It's mostly targeted at teens and adults, but are you seeing that in the preschool world as well?
Yeah, definitely. And I suppose there's a difference between AI and AI slop, right? Like,
this was definitely AI slop.
Yeah. AI is a great tool, and I think could revolutionize the animation industry in very positive ways, right? Will there be inexpensive jobs? Yeah, that's difficult, but there'll be new jobs too that are different. But the accessibility of AI and the accessibility to YouTube, those two things kind of multiplied by each other when it comes to preschool and kids is really difficult, because what you have is these creators who are trying to come up on YouTube, or maybe are doing certain amount of numbers. I spoke with one on the Kids Media Club podcast, shameless plug, the podcast that I do with my colleagues. But
very good podcast. Once you finish with ours, you should definitely check it out.
You listen to it when you're doing your bathrooms on the weekend. But Corey Williams, Silly Crocodile, and Corey's creating content with his whole heart, okay, and trying to make it work. But the AI pirates basically see that Silly Crocodile is doing well and target that. Hey, AI, make me Jolly Crocodile, make me Funny Crocodile, make me whatever, and basically attacking his search equity with AI stuff to totally flood the market and to dilute his content that genuinely connects because he's invested in the time and the story and the production mechanisms. So that is one of the big issues around AI, that, AI can flood YouTube and it can flood out the people who are trying to do well. And I think that's a real concern.
And the good thing about it is that YouTube, as is Spotify, are now working on specifically removing these, let's call them, I wouldn't call them deep fakes, but they're inappropriate abuse of an original creator's works. And because they're concerned to ensure that creators either on Spotify or YouTube are getting the right percentage fees from the pool of royalty payments, they don't want those creators to be diluted of their interest. So I think there's going to be a bit more of a sort of crackdown, I think, on that slop, but you're not going to stop them, but there will be a crackdown so that the original creator will get their fair share of royalties. Fingers crossed.
In a beautiful world where that's really possible.
In theory. But at least they're acknowledging that there is a problem here, and they're putting some sort of mechanism in place to try to solve it and to try to ensure that the real creators stay on their platforms. So, yeah.
So where is the where if you had to make a prediction for, if we get you back here in 2.5 years, how long was it?
It's
3.5 years.
Over.
Hopefully
When you come
hopefully
back for
sooner.
our
Hopefully sooner.
160th anniversary episode, that's terrifying thought. What do you think will have changed from, if you think about the last 3 years and what has changed, where do you see all this going? Do you have any thoughts, any ideas where we're going with this?
Oh God. Yeah.
Crystal ball moment.
I think Roblox as an IP generator is yet to fully ripen, right? Like I think that's where a big new kids IP is going to come from. I think I would hope to see some stability in the premium landscape, and I am rooting for Paramount Warner from a kids media perspective to come and consolidate into the space, and make it competitive, make it a 3-horse race. I just don't know where this safety stuff is going to land from a digital perspective. It could blow up the kids ecosystem, which wouldn't necessarily be a bad thing, right? Like, YouTube's dominance and their lack of accountability is a problem, and that it grinds my gears because, Claire, I love YouTube as a platform, like that we've connected on that. Like that's, I love how accessible it is, but it needs to do better. And if this is the time, then this is the time. But I think it's impossible to know how a situation like that will work out, because we haven't really seen a situation like that happen since basically smoking, right? And it's not the same medium, right? So I just don't know how it plays out in media.
Excellent. Brilliant. Well, and do you think there's still a final question, because I know we're running out of time. Do you think there's still space for new creators? Can you still break into kids TV?
Yeah.
If the next, I don't know, the SpongeBob creator came around, could they find the space?
100%. There's loads of people doing. You need to chase a new model, right? That's what I say to any traditional kids producer. If you're not trying to actively enter YouTube, new models, new ways to do things, if your whole business plan is based on chasing a commissioner down the corridor at kid screen, you've got a real problem, because kid screen's not happening, right? Like, so there's people we see like Corey Williams and Silly Crocodile. Claynosaurs is another one, which have come up on like NFT and collectibles in the animation community. Strawberry Vampire is an indie show trying to make it through Substack and YouTube. Like some of the creativity around animation on TikTok or on YouTube is awesome. We just need to find a way to make it viable. Do you know what I mean? Right? Like, and that's the question. And I get YouTube, and YouTube's an ecosystem. Copa was brought in for the right reasons, but has it benefited kids? Would be my question. Has it really benefited kids? And question is no, because it's completely neutralized and neutered the ability to build a kids IP with heart and love, like Miss Rachel on YouTube. That's just a difficult question. But it's if we can sort out that monetization piece, and I know there's lots of discussions like there's a DCMS hearing in the UK as well, where they're talking about prominence, they're talking about, but it needs to be funded, right? And ultimately that comes down to the platforms like YouTube having some sort of responsibility in funding. I mean, all kids content by nature is essentially public service, because we need to do right by them. It needs to be good enough. So yeah, it's all a big messy mess.
Excellent. I feel like that's a really good end to the show.
Headline: Emily Horgan. Media is a messy mess.
It's a messy mess.
Emily said it's a messy mess, but also that there's space for new creators, and we need to protect our children. So not all messy.
And we need to and even I would appeal to not just the Reverend Love, like the Mrs. Lovejoy. Think of the children. Think of your own childhood, right? Even just make it selfish. Think of your own childhood. Think of watching cartoons on a Saturday morning. Think of the shows that you fell in love with, and the movies you fell in love with. We want that to sustain, right? Everybody wants to give kids that feeling. So like, but we need to, the money needs to be there, you know? So yeah, definitely.
Wow. Thank you so much, as usual. Beautiful insights, well expressed, and let's all find our inner child, I think, and
Yes.
make a messy mess. I'm trying to summarise, but that's what I'm hearing. Our inner child, absolutely right. Emily, an absolute pleasure, as it was. Let's hope it's not 3.5 years until we see you again. Excellent questioning, Claire. Maureen, as expected, fabulous stuff. So it only remains for me to say thank you and goodbye, Claire.
Thank you very much. And if anybody wants to see the Gorgonzola video, I might drop that in the comments of the LinkedIn post.
I want to see it.
That's what we'll put in our show notes. A messy mess and some Gorgonzola. Classic. Maureen, bye for now. See you soon.
Thank you. Goodbye. Thank you. Thank you so much, Emily. It was so insightful. Thank you. And I want some merchandise. I want some merchandise.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
That's a thing. Oh,
There we go.
that's
Look at this.
That's why Kids Content is so awesome. It's all the stuff. It's all the.
I had to tidy up
wait a minute, there's
some of
something
my
else.
toys,
No?
but they're around. They're around here somewhere.
They're around.
That means we have to have you back. Emily, thanks again, and bye-bye. Goodbye to the world of the Media Beat. Hope you enjoyed that one. See you on the next one. Bye-bye.